This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Welcome to Ballot Battleground Nevada. I'm your host, Ben Margiott, a reporter at KRNV News 4 in Reno. I'm passionate about making politics in this critical battleground state more digestible to the average voter and pushing past the talking points to press politicians for answers. On this show, we take deep dives into the people, ideas, and debates shaping Silver State politics. It's been a difficult couple of weeks in northern Nevada. The Davis fire, which sparked back on September 7th, ripped through the northern part of Washoe Valley, spread into Washoe City, and kept pushing north, threatening neighborhoods in South Reno. It charred over 5,800 acres and burned 11 homes and 3 other structures. We brought you live team coverage on both News 4 and Fox 11 for several days in a row, and that's why Ballot Battleground Nevada had to take last week off. Moving forward, though, you can expect a new episode every week through Election Day as we cover all angles of this wild 2024 cycle. One angle was the first Northern Nevada visit from Kamala Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. He was planning to hold a big campaign rally, but scrapped that plan because of the Davis fire. Instead, last Monday, he visited volunteers at the Washoe County Democratic headquarters who'd been collecting donations for fire victims, and then took a quick visit to speak with firefighters at the Incident Command Post at Galena High School. We were there, inside Walz's motorcade. Here are the sights and sounds of his quick trip to Reno.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much. And I just have to say to everyone here, Chair Sims, everybody, we know this has been a challenging week. Really appreciate, first of all, modeling what really the reason everybody gets into public service. It's about helping your neighbors when they need help. And modeling this and turning this office into, that's what it's all about. The campaigns and politics are a means to an end. The end is a better, fairer society where all of us take care of one another. Right on. When a family loses their home, and it truly is a home, not a house, we know that that's very challenging. So I appreciate everyone making the donations, making sure that we're taking care of our neighbors, making sure we're getting those things out there.
Walz did not speak with the media on this visit. We did hear from the Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue spokesman, Adam Mayberry.
And it was important for him. They told us to come by and just recognize what we're doing and recognize the first responders. So it was a pleasure to have him. We appreciate him coming by.
The Nevada GOP blasted the visit as a political ploy, saying at the time, quote, "Northern Nevada needs all hands on deck to put out a fire that is 0% contained, not political candidates looking to make this a campaign stop." Again, we wanted to ask Walz about that, but he didn't take any questions. We did take that concern to Mayberry.
How many fire resources are tied up here, and is that a concern? You know, a lot of firefighters are here while we're trying to fight an active fire.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing that we were talking with the governor about was that this fire has become the priority fire in our geographical region. And so that helps us in terms of a lot of resources are being diverted to other fires to come to fight this fire.
Walz then flew down to southern Nevada to hold a fundraiser and visit a coffee shop the following day in Las Vegas. All right, let's get into this week's interview. It's another first for Ballot Battleground Nevada this week, our first former governor of the Silver State. We were thrilled to be joined by Brian Sandoval, the 29th governor of Nevada, who I covered when I first moved to Reno, as well as Richard Perkins, former Speaker of the Nevada Assembly, who served 14 years in the state legislature. Sandoval, a Republican, and Perkins, a Democrat, have joined together to serve as co-chairs of the Democracy Defense Project. We'll let them tell you what they're trying to accomplish with this new initiative. And don't forget to stick around until the very end this week. We've got another edition of our fact-checking segment, examining the claims made in 2 commercials, one for and against question 3 on ranked choice voting and open primaries. Okay, without further ado, Brian Sandoval and Richard Perkins. Joining us now on the podcast, 2 esteemed guests, the former governor of Nevada, Brian Sandoval, and the former Speaker of the Nevada Assembly, Richard Perkins. Former Governor Sandoval, Mr. Perkins, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure.
No, Ben, thank you very much.
This is the first time that we've had a former governor and the first time that we've had a former speaker. So make it some Battleground Nevada history here. Let's start with a brief introduction. I think most of our listeners are familiar with you, of course, Mr. Sandoval, former governor of Nevada for multiple terms, the 29th governor from 2011 to 2019, and now, of course, the University of Nevada, Reno president. And for folks who don't know Mr. Perkins, 14 years in the Nevada legislature, 2 years as the Democratic floor leader, 4 years as the majority leader, and then 6 years as Speaker of the Assembly. So just an amazing amount of political experience among the both of you guys. But in this capacity now, you guys are co-chairs of the Democracy Defense Project here in Nevada. What is that? Why did you guys want to be involved?
Thank you. And also, Ben, I just wanted to mention that I had the privilege of serving with Speaker Perkins when I was in the legislature in the 90s, and just a great leader. I think why I'm so excited to partner with him on this is it really does show how members of different parties can work together for the good of Nevada. I think it's really important that individuals, residents of our state, the registered voters, have full trust in our elections. And I think all of our elections via our Secretary of State have been conducted in the best way possible. And with an election with so much on the line coming up, I want everyone in our state who goes to the polls to feel good about their vote.
What's the goal? What do you guys hope to accomplish with this?
Well, I think Governor Sandoval laid it out there well in his introductory remarks there, Ben, and I'll also provide my compliments to him. We served in the legislature together. I was Speaker when he was Attorney General. I mean, he just worked together on a lot of things and have the highest regard for him. And in those veins, we really want to accomplish confidence in our elections. Every day I walked into those assembly chambers, I was in awe of that responsibility and those who came before us and those who would come after us, and really wanted to make sure that whatever it is we did it for the best of our citizens, because that's why we were there. If our citizens don't believe in the elections and have no confidence there, then we've really sort of devolved into an anarchy type of system rather than the most amazing democracy and republic in the world's history.
Governor Sandoval, you've been kind of largely out of the political arena since you left the governor's mansion several years ago. What was it about this project that, because you obviously have a full-time job as the president of the largest or second largest university here in the state, what made you want to add this on to your already very busy schedule? Why are you so passionate about it?
Well, and I suppose part of it starts with our students. We've had polling places right on our campus, and I want our students to be as involved as they possibly can be and exercise their right to vote. And a lot of them are studying this very area, and it's important for me as the president of this university to be able to contribute to a project that really builds, as the speaker says, confidence in our elections moving forward. What I don't want is there to be any doubt with regard to the outcome of these elections. I know that our Secretary of State, Cisco Aguilar, has been working extremely hard to ensure the integrity of the elections, along with the voter registrar's office and our respective voter registrars across the state.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
There is, of course, as you guys have both referenced, kind of a crisis of confidence in our elections with kind of record numbers of people. I don't have the polling right in front of me right now, but record numbers of people that are distrustful of the process and they're skeptical or doubt the outcome. Mr. Perkins, what's the number one thing that we can all do, but that you guys specifically are trying to do to get that moving in a different direction to where we're building faith and confidence in the system?
Well, I think the most important thing that any of our citizens can do is to make sure they vote. Voting is the foundation of what it is we do. We are a self-governing country and state and local governments. And so voting is so important. And Ben, we've talked already about the crisis in confidence. This isn't new, but it's more seen and more obvious in today's world than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And with all of the things that are going on across the country with folks claiming that there's fraud in our elections by tens of thousands of people and the Stop the Steal slogans and those sorts of things, it really has brought it to the forefront. So getting people to vote, having them be involved, and then we rely on the systems and the folks like, as Governor Sandoval mentioned, Secretary of State Aguilar's efforts in maintaining the security of our systems, and then believing that we've got results that we can all embrace.
Governor Sandoval, have you finished this sentence for me? The 2020 election was
very well conducted. And as I said, I think that it was an election not without controversy, but at the end of the day, I think at least here in the state of Nevada, the Secretary of State performed extremely well.
Of course, there was not widespread voter fraud in that election. The people that have been making that claim largely are in your party. Why is it so difficult for so many Republicans in your party, Mr. Sandoval, to say just that the election was free and fair and it was not stolen or rigged?
Well, I would say this, that I would say the supermajority of people within the Republican Party do have full faith in the elections. And perhaps there's a smaller group that has an outsized voice in trying to create doubt in the elections. But at the end of the day, like you said, it was conducted without fraud, and everyone, at least here in the state of Nevada, can feel good about the outcome of that election, just like they can feel good about what's going to happen in 2024.
For some folks, the 2020 election is kind of the central issue. It's something that former President Trump talks about often a lot. I mean, do you feel with how central kind of that issue of election integrity and these claims of voter fraud are to President Trump, I mean, that you still have a place in today's Republican Party?
Well, I'm not going to veer into politics right now, Ben, but, I'm a registered Republican, have been my entire life. And as I said, that's part of why I've agreed to participate in this Democracy Defense Project, is to really let people know that we have a great system here in the state of Nevada. We have a great Secretary of State. We have great individuals in all of our respective counties that are going to put on an election that people can be proud of and be confident in.
Mr. Perkins, what kind of message would you have for your Democratic colleagues to have obviously had more confidence in our election system and didn't dispute the results in the last cycles? What message would you have for them?
Well, and like Governor Sandoval, I have great confidence in this as well. We've got a number of friends across the aisle. And if you look at the Democracy Defense Project, it is bipartisan. But the challenge that I think we have, Ben, and the Democrats in the state, many of whom are my friends, I think will embrace how this moves forward, regardless of the outcome, and understanding that the Secretary of State has put in place systems that we can be proud of and we can have confidence in. One of the challenges that we face now that neither Governor Sandoval nor I, back in our getting elected days, had as much is social media, for better or worse. There's a lot more communication through social media, but there's not a lot of fact checking sometimes, and that tends to give a voice to, as Governor Sandoval mentioned, the smaller group with an outsized voice. And so I think if we just on a daily basis can refute those claims that are absolutely false, all of us together can help provide confidence in our elections.
You just gave a great plug to a fact check segment that we launched a couple of weeks ago. So appreciate you doing that. You guys have spoken out in favor and in support of kind of the efforts by the Secretary of State's office as well as the registrars across Nevada to clean up the voter rolls ahead of this general election cycle. How does that play into kind of boosting confidence in people's elections? I think we can all agree, of course, that making sure that the people that are on the rolls are active voters that live in their correct location is important to kind of make sure that people feel confident in the system, right?
They're doing their jobs. And I think each of the voter registrars, and there was a significant amount of voters. I mean, they sent out the postcards to the last known address. If there was a response, it gave the individual the opportunity to reaffirm that they reside there. And if there wasn't a response, they were removed from the voter roll. So I think that was an incredible step in the right direction to continue to build and strengthen that confidence in the upcoming election.
That is a very good first step in making sure that we're tracking down our voters. We know who they are, and that with such a transient state, particularly in the southern part where I live, making sure that we don't have folks on the rolls that really aren't here anymore. And just as recent as the last month, I received another communication from the registrar down here. By the way, I would echo Governor Sandoval's sentiments about our registrars who are key to this process, asking me if I wanted to change my signature. I think the signature they had on file for me was when I was 18 years old. My signature hasn't looked like that in a very long time, but that's just another one of those steps to make sure that we are keeping fraud out of the system and making sure that the voters that we have there are the appropriate ones.
Governor, I want to ask you about an issue up here in northern Nevada that you guys followed and spoke out against, which was the Washoe County Commission initially not certifying the results of 2 recounts. How closely were you following that? What was your reaction when you saw that, at least on the first vote? Of course, they did ultimately vote to certify, but the first time around, this failed, and it kind of threw our county and these election results into uncharted territory. We didn't know what it all meant and what it might mean if it could happen again in November.
It's complex, as you described, Ben. And at the end of the day, I think the finding was that the question was moot. But in any event, I think there was some confusion at the county commission level as to what the discretion was for the respective county commissioners. And I think there was some instruction or guidance that was given by the Secretary of State's office. And at the end of the day, I think it was resolved in the correct way.
Switching to voter ID is an issue that many people believe will kind of improve confidence in the system. Is the Democracy Defense Project taking a position on the voter ID ballot measure that will be on everyone's ballots in November that supporters say will make the system more safe and secure?
Ben, to my knowledge, it has not. And maybe Governor Sandoval has different information, but our real approach here and our charge is to describe what's currently going on in our system to make sure that folks understand that there are systems in place to ensure that there's not widespread voter fraud. I mean, nobody's going to sit here and tell you that there's not going to be fraud in our system. It's just that it is so minuscule based upon the number of votes that are cast that it doesn't have an impact on the outcome of elections. But to your question directly, in terms of voter ID, I don't believe that's part of the messaging or charge for the Democracy Defense Project.
Yeah, and if I could add on to the speaker, it is not. That this is all about full and fair elections and the integrity of elections. The Democracy Defense Project does not take a position on any pending question on the ballot.
Less than 2 months till the election now, by the time this episode drops. What do you guys hope to accomplish between now and then, and in the wake of that election in November as well?
Having confidence in the elections is imperative if people are going to actually feel like they can go out to vote. And I think that's, from my perspective, trying to just encourage people to understand that there is a strong system. They should have confidence in it, and they should exercise their right and, in many ways, duty to vote.
First and foremost, you're doing it for us. Thank you for the opportunity to have this audience and be able to be part of your podcast, because that really gives us, a chance to talk about the importance of the upcoming election. And as the speaker says, the importance of engaging and voting in this upcoming election. So that's what we'll continue to do. I'm sure we'll do some op-eds together. We'll hopefully have an opportunity to do some more, participate in media opportunities to talk about exercising the right to vote and the integrity of our elections, and making sure everybody knows they can feel good about their vote and that their vote really does matter.
What would your number one message be to someone who doesn't feel that way? Maybe they do believe that the 2020 election was rigged or was unfair in some way, and maybe they don't want to vote because they don't think their vote counts, or they are going to vote, but they don't believe the results when it happens?
Some folks are just not going to be able to convince. I mean, they've got it in their minds that this is what happened, and they're seeing the social media or the messages from those who have put that out there for their consumption. But the biggest thing I could ask them to do is to do some research. Ask the questions, find out what safeguards exist in our system and why the misinformation that's out there is inaccurate.
You know, it kind of goes back to some of the basics. As Rich said, there may be this small group that no matter what, you're not going to be able to persuade them. But on the other hand, the great super majority out there are going to go out and vote. I want them to feel good about their vote. And then regardless of the outcome of the election, they can feel good about their participation.
All right. Governor Sandoval, former Speaker Perkins, thank you so much for coming on Ballot Battleground Nevada and sharing with us about the Democracy Defense Project. I'll say as we wrap up here, I mean, great to see a Democrat and a Republican both talking on the same side of this issue. And if I'll chime in here and say, I mean, I think there needs to be more people, especially from your party, Mr. Sandoval, that are out there saying this to kind of turn the tide on this election skepticism and all the doubts that we've been seeing in recent years. So we appreciate the effort and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Ben.
For us to be able to do this in a bipartisan way throughout the Democracy Defense Project actually is meaningful. And thank you so very much for creating this opportunity for us to have the conversation.
You bet. Come back anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
A special thanks to Brian Sandoval and Richard Perkins. Before we go, another in our ongoing series, fact-checking political commercials that you're seeing on our airwaves. This week, we took a deep dive on 2 ads dealing with Question 3. It would change the state constitution to open up primaries to all voters, including nonpartisans, and have ranked choice voting in the general election. We'll have a lot more on Question 3 in the coming weeks, including a big announcement soon. But for now, we'll start with a fact check of this 30-second spot from the Yes on 3 campaign.
Right now, nearly 1 million independent voters are locked out from Nevada's closed primary, prohibited from voting in a taxpayer-funded election. That's veterans and teachers, firefighters and hospitality workers, all excluded from having a say. But we can change that with Question 3. Question 3 opens our primary to all registered voters, so all Nevadans have the right to vote in all elections, giving everyone more and better choices in November. Vote yes on Question 3.
First, the claim that nearly 1 million independent voters are locked out of Nevada's closed primary. If you add up all of Nevada's nonpartisan voters, as well as third-party voters like Libertarians and Independent American Party voters, that is about 1 million people. To be sure, those third-party voters can participate in a primary if there are multiple candidates running for their party's nomination. That doesn't happen very often, though. As for the nonpartisan voters, they're not excluded altogether, but they can't participate in partisan contests. So congressional races, House and Senate, all statewide offices, including governor and legislative races. This measure would open up primaries for those races, but it would not open up the presidential preference primary. Nevada does have same-day registration, so you can change your party affiliation up to the day of the election, but the vast majority of people don't, and either don't vote at all or just vote their limited nonpartisan ballot with a handful of local races. So they're not prohibited from voting in primaries, but they cannot vote in many of the top-of-ticket partisan races. Okay, next up is a 30-second commercial from Fair Government Nevada, a political group formed to oppose Question 3. While the Yes on 3 ad focused on the open primaries aspect of this ad hones in on the other part, ranked choice voting. Let's listen.
So, Question 3 wants to change how Nevada votes. It requires you take the time to rank 5 candidates and could throw out your vote if your top choice doesn't make the cut. In other states that have tried this, it caused chaos. 10 times as many ballots are thrown out because of errors, leaving thousands of eligible voters without their votes counted. So Question 3 makes voting more complicated and unfair? No thanks. Vote no on Question 3.
So, under ranked choice voting, you are not required to vote for 5 candidates. You can actually vote as many as you like, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. It does benefit the voter to vote for more candidates because if your first-choice candidate receives the fewest votes in the first round of voting, they're eliminated, and then the people who voted for that eliminated candidate, their second-choice candidate, is then counted. But if you only vote one person and they don't make the cut, you don't get a say in the second round of voting. As for the claim that more than 10 times as many ballots are thrown out because of errors, that's referencing a 2023 study from the University of Pennsylvania. And yes, nearly 1 in 20 voters improperly marked their ballots in some way. We should point out, though, that only 0.35% of ballots were rejected in the first round of counting. That rejection rate did go up to 0.53% in the final round of counting, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. So yes, the ballot rejection rate is significantly higher for ranked choice voting than in standard races. The most common mistake, by the way, is an overvote. That's when someone selects more than one candidate for a given ranking. Again, we're planning to bring you more interviews and content on Question 3 in the coming weeks, including a special program we'll be announcing very soon, so stay tuned. If you made it to the end of this episode, I really appreciate it. If you have guest ideas, episode ideas, questions, comments, compliments, concerns, anything at all, shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. My email is bjmargiott, MARGIOTT, @sbgtv.com. And please put Ballot Battleground Nevada in the subject line. If you have a minute too, we'd really appreciate it if you left a rating and a review. That helps the show up higher in searches so more people can discover the podcast. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back with a new episode next week.